invest. There we go.
No, it looks. You can see it. It looks
Woo.
great.
Yes. I was about to say, what you gonna do when Antisyphon comes for you? That should be.
There we go.
The latest thing. The latest is back there piled up. That's
wow. Yeah, there's a bunch of stuff. You got sharks. You got a crab. I see the knife under the crab, so that's good. A gator, robot.
Nice.
No, that's not even the knife. No, so that is getting recorded. But hold on.
Oh my!
You had that ready to go.
You knew which drawer it was in and everything, just in case.
Well, it's important if you're gonna have a toolbox full of knives that you organize it well.
So, just for Deb, gonna do the thing where I'm crawling backwards in the crab suit with the knife, like the kid.
Have someone on filming it with put a hand in it and then make it do all Lord of the Rings esque, so you look smaller and the hand looks bigger.
Yeah. No, it'd be perfect. Do it
and
just
have the
like
Mork and
yeah.
Have the Mork and Mindy voice. Help me! Literally, that would be. I was watching Mork and Mindy today for some odd reason. I don't know why.
Because it's awesome.
Yeah.
Yes.
Because it's some of the best.
I don't know why.
ever made.
I don't know why. I just yeah, that is true.
Especially the episodes where Jonathan Winter shows up as the baby.
I would.
It's amazing.
I remember his voice scaring me as a child, that Mork voice.
I could see that.
And then he showed up in Happy Days, and I freaked out even more. I was like, "Why is he in Happy Days? Get out of Happy Days."
Well, it's the other way around. I thought it was the other way around. He was in Happy Days.
It was the other way around.
Was it? Well, I saw the Mork and Mindy. Then, there was no weird timeline. Yeah, it was early '90s for me. All right. So
I was gonna say it was early '80s. I'm like, wait, ain't that old?
Nick at Night going strong.
Yeah.
No, the graybeards are showing they're gray right now.
The graybeards, yeah.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
The news isn't too strong today, if anyone.
Yeah, there's nothing going on.
Never is.
We could talk about John's prediction of the tech implosion. I felt like first it was all the firings, and then was it SVB? It feels like dominoes falling.
We just hit the room is full alert.
But you notice something?
Yeah, I saw that.
Every time something like this happens, like insanely crazy in tech, I think of John's words. I don't know why. I don't know why. I guess when you
words?
Talk, futures, just everything. When you're talking futures and everything else, it's hey, be on the lookout for this. And I just always think
Corey.
Man, I wonder what John is saying right now. If it's massive tech layoffs, if it's what happened with the Silicon Bank, right? I just think about that sometimes.
Oh yeah, we will be talking about that because I think it is relevant in the security community for sure today. So.
Oh yeah.
All right.
You can only have 10 Hollywood squares. They make it big enough for you to have a couple more, though, don't they? So, maybe.
Can we throw more money at this problem?
No, I don't think so.
I don't think that'll help.
We could start up a second stream that runs at the same time as the stream and just pay for 2 licenses.
This sounds like a bad idea. Make it so.
Yeah. In all seriousness, I have seen people log one person in showing their Zoom session
of the other person because you can have multiple.
All right. Let me start a Zoom session with Corey real quick.
Hey, let's kick it off. Bring up the hand.
All right. Here we go.
Hello and welcome to another edition of Black Hills Information Security Talking About News. In this edition, we're calling it the It's Not a Problem Till It's a Problem for Me edition of Black Hills Information Security Talking About News. And the reason why is we have a lot of stories and a lot of big things going on the internet and in the world in general where it seems like it's not an issue until it's an issue for the people involved. And I want to start with probably the biggest thing that most people are interested in talking about, the absolute total complete meltdown of Silicon Valley Bank. And I don't want to go through the timeline of what happened. There's lots and lots and lots of cool things talking about that. What I want to kind of query everybody that's on with us today is, what does this mean? And basically, we do know at this point that all of the bank deposits, if you have a checking account, if you have a savings account, that's going to be honored. People are going to be able to do payroll. Hooray. If you invested in SVB, you're screwed. So congratulations on that. But I want to open it up to one important question is, what does this do to the VC industry as far as like innovation in computer security? Is this actually an issue? Was a lot of the innovation just FUD and snake oil? Or is there going to be tangible impacts further on down the line in the security community as a whole? So that would be the kind of the opening question I want to start with on that. Anyone want to jump in?
Who wants to go
Who
first?
studied economics?
A really easy question, John, to start us out.
I know, right?
Just nice and
I'll
light.
give it a shot. I'll give it a shot first. Looking at it, looking at the history, looking at what's happened with other banks or other systems that have failed due to financial problems, I think that what this will affect more along the lines of is the amount of VC funding and how long it takes to get VC funding. I think what's going to wind up happening is you're going to see fewer VCs giving out fewer bucks, but I think they're going to go ahead and do a little bit more research and require a little bit more hard evidence that it is worthwhile. It might cut down on some of the snake oil that we get, or some of the people that are just trying to go ahead and build up a company to flip it around and get it bought by another company. That might get brought down a bit without tangibles to it. But I think that's where we're really heading on it. Overall, I don't think there's going to be a ton of change. I think it's just going to be probably a few years of being shy. I mean, you take a look at what happened with the housing market and how a lot of those predatory practices, some of them have slipped back in through side channels around regulations that were set up. So I could sort of see history repeating itself, only on the VC side of things this time.
All right.
Yeah.
What? So let me ask one question. Why does all this VC funding always went to Silicon Valley Bank, right?
No.
Yes.
Most of it. Like
most of it.
I looked at the top people who had the most money in there, and like all of them had millions, hundreds of millions, billions. Why were they just using that one bank? Why was that?
I can answer that question. All right. And it actually makes sense. So let's say, Wade, I give you $10 million, right, to start your own VC firm. Or not your own VC firm, to start your own company as a startup. Now, one of the things that was very, very, very cool about Silicon Valley Bank is they made it very easy for you to get lines of credit and get loans, even if you didn't have a positive cash flow. So if Black Hills Information Security tried to get a loan at Wells Fargo or US Bank or Chase or wherever, with those traditional banks, they want to make sure that there's actual really good fundamentals in play in the company before they give me a line of credit. So if I'm running a company and I'm bleeding out, let's say $200,000 a month, any rational bank that looks at this from a traditional business like fundamentals is going to say, you're out of your effing mind. Whereas Silicon Valley Bank understood startup companies, and they were willing to give cash and create lines of credit for companies that may not be cash flow positive. So if I'm investing in you, I want you to go to Silicon Valley Bank with the money that I'm giving you, because I know if we get into a bit of a crunch on cash, you'll be banking with a bank that understands the situation, and they'll be able to get you additional funds as far as like a line of credit or a loan to get you through. So they were very, very, very amenable to these startup companies. So that's why everyone went to Silicon Valley.
That makes a lot of sense. So they were willing to take bigger risks and possibly lose amount of money on this, which also gives me a little bit more insight into possibly how they failed, right? Because they were taking all this. I'm sure there was other stuff, but that was the one question I had no clue about. And that makes more sense on why everyone was going there.
So there's a bunch. We can quickly get into why they failed, like very, very, very quickly. One, they didn't diversify their investment portfolio with the money that they had in the bank. They were sticking with like mortgage-backed securities and treasury bonds, short-term yield, that the interest rate was very, very low on. So if they tried to sell those, they would lose money because the interest rate went up. Most banks try to keep a larger cash on hand so they can handle a run on the banks. And then they also try to diversify their assets that they're investing in. So an example would be if the housing market's crap for banks, then you can just do like precious metals or something like that. You can sell assets in other sectors and make money so you can get liquid cash on hand. What happened is they were kind of into a tiny crunch on cash on hand, tiny crunch. And no, seriously, tiny crunch. It wasn't catastrophic until the point that the investors who loved Silicon Valley Bank started telling the companies they invested in, go pull all of your money now. And then they started.
So John, I think every bank is susceptible to a bank run, right?
Yes.
While it is fair to say that some banks are more diversified or have more cash on hand, every bank is susceptible to a cash run, okay? Because not all of your money stays in there; they reinvest it in other things, right?
Yes.
So just to kind of clear the air about that, we're all there. There's no safe bank there, but that's when the FDIC is supposed to come in. The thing is, with this particular bank, a lot of people had a lot of like way more than $250,000, which is a whole nother separate thing. But to go to your actual like divergence here about, outside of the banking system, like how does this affect VC startup and stuff? My bigger thing is, do we necessarily need more VC startup? I don't know. I feel like personally that while there are some VC backed startup that do end up making something great, I do think a lot of it is just a cash grab to create value, go to a stock, get listed on a stock market, sell and bail, right? And then just move on to the next thing. But that's just my opinion.
And that brings up the second problem with Silicon Valley Bank. No one wanted to buy them. And part of the reason why no one wanted to buy them, just one of the reasons, was because the type of companies that they invested in and the money that they had in the bank were not a whole bunch of companies that have solid business fundamentals. Because you're absolutely right, Ralph. Most of the time in the VC world, which once again is completely horseshit, just to make it completely clear, when you invest in a company, a lot of the investors have two exit strategies that they honestly care about. The first exit strategy is the company is bought by another company. So you invest in, say, a SIM company, and then you invest, let's say, $10 million, and then they sell that to Amazon or Microsoft or Splunk for $50 million. You made a crap ton of money in that situation. The other thing is you go IPO, and then once the stock goes public, then you make a bunch of money on that. The biggest problem about this entire space, and this is far beyond SVB, is very, very, very few companies that are not legacy old companies are actually cash flow positive and making money. They may be having like billions of dollars in sales a year or whatever, but they're still bleeding money. And that, once again, comes back to the traditional banking system, where a lot of people in the traditional banking system are like, I don't want to touch that entire market segment because they are not making money. And that's what we're coming into the question that I think is important here. Like, does this cause the full VC funding universe to basically pump the brakes and start going someplace else, getting away from IT and moving into other things? And I got some scary stories I want to share here in a little bit, but I want to put that question out there. What do you all think from a VC funding? Do you think that this just going to find another bank and keep going, or did they get burnt enough here?
I want to jump in on that.
Go ahead. Yeah, go ahead, Ian.
Yeah, so you might have heard me say when Wade had said, like, was this the only bank to go with? And I said, or they all go with it. And John said yes, and I said no. And the truth is, John's absolutely right. But I believe I'm also right as well in this. Everyone went with SVB for all the reasons that John said, right? Investors say, I work with this bank. They understand it. I'm about to give you a $20 million check. Use this bank. You're not going to argue, right? You got the check. You get access to this stuff. But I was talking to some friends of mine, two sets of friends of mine who are running startups. And I said, hey, are you okay? And they said, by sheer luck, yes, because we use Brex. And I'm not recommending any of these. But there were other banks that, depending on your investors, weren't in SVB. And if you were one of those, cool. But it still exposes, like John said, a lot of the problems with VC. Like, are we just throwing money into a system because it's easy? And it's like, hey, spread it all around and one of these will take off. And if it does, we get all our money back from all the failures. So the whole move fast, break things in Silicon Valley absolutely permeated into finance as well. So to answer the second part of John's question, will it have an impact? yes and decidedly no. I think the companies that are looking to do those cash grabs that are like, hey, all we're trying to do is build a product that we sell to Splunk, but sell to Microsoft, and then get out, they're going to be fine. There's going to be no issues with that. That's all going to be private funding directly through contacts and back rooms. None of that's going to change. But the companies that have got a good idea that might have been miraculous, but can't demonstrate how they're going to make money quickly, yeah, they're going to be impacted 100% because the mechanism that made it easy to take chances, Silicon Valley Bank, doesn't exist anymore.
Yep.
So now they're going to have to be a little more conservative about the bets they take.
Yeah. So a couple of things, right? When you're dealing with like with the VCs, I think that when they're gonna cool out for a while, it's not gonna be like how it was before, because they're gonna wait for everything to, I say, heal. So it's just more so from a perspective like saying, okay, cool, you know what? While we're going through this transition and, with this situation with the bank collapse, now we got to make adjustments. Some people might be able to stay on the staff. They might make some cuts on their end as well too. You might see some layoffs within their firms as well too, just so they can adjust to weather the storm. Do I think they're going to change their behaviors? No, it'll be back to the way it was before the collapse happened. It's just going to take a little bit of time now. They're going to ease up on giving out funding. They're just going to say, okay, wait a minute. They might not even do the research. They might just say flat out no until the process
and that
heals itself.
And dude, BSD is absolutely right. And there's some terrifying undercurrents and connotations about what he said. I once again, I have lots of friends that are in the VC game. I have lots of friends that are starting up companies. I'm not part of that world because I looked at it and I was like, F no. But talking to them, I already know of two situations where a VC firm had agreed to pay a development startup X number of dollars. I can't remember if it's per quarter or per month. It's completely irrelevant. Contractually had signed a contract. So let's say hypothetically, I signed a contract to give BSD $10 million over the next 2 years, but it's in payment installments in that contract. I know of two situations where startup companies got a call from their VC funding and they said, we're not giving you any more money. And they said, we had a contract, we had a deal. And the VC firm's perspective on this is they want to pull all of their money out of the water, wait for things to simmer down. They would rather have that cash on hand. And sure, they violated that contract, but they also know that if they wait long enough and you get into a lawsuit situation, the actual startup company will run out of money and go out of business before the lawsuit is ever settled. So we're seeing that type of activity that's starting to happen from some really, really, really shady VC organizations. But I think BSD nailed it. They're going to pull out for a while, wait for things to calm down, find another bank, find another way to do this, and then they're going to come back into the waters. But what that means in the short term for some of these firms is their VC funding that they think is secured, that's coming, is not going to come. And I think that that's going to create some impacts in the industry as a whole.
Yeah, agreed.
But do you think this is actually going to affect security?
So for frame of reference, the Silicon Valley Bank had 500 security firms that were banking and working with them. Not a lot of them weren't directly invested by Silicon Valley. I think there was like a couple. CrowdStrike was one, and they're not going to be a problem. But I don't know. See, I think one thing we're going to see is the job market is going to cool off dramatically because there's going to be a lot more people that are laid off with certain dev skills and things like that. But this is one of those things where either A, it's going to mean more business for firms like BHIS and Trusted Sec and
who's left over to take over the work.
Your ideas, where all of a sudden these firms can't do the work and they're going to come to companies that are more stable. It could be that none of it matters. It's like Ian said, it's going to be catastrophic for some people, but for the vast majority of us, it ain't going to matter for nothing.
For sure.
You know, John, it's funny you said that because earlier up, and forgive me in the chat, somebody put, it doesn't impact me at all. I'm in Canada. I wouldn't.
Well,
I wouldn't do that.
Well, remember,
It's been affecting
Silicon Valley
Britain.
Bank had a branch in the UK as an example. I don't know if they had a Canadian branch or they just ran all of that through the United States or not. I don't know about Canada.
Well,
But HSBC bought the Silicon Valley UK division.
Right. But even more where I was going with it, we talked about this, I think it was either through text or I can't remember what, but like payroll. Like if you are one of those disruptive companies that has got a payroll service that's breaking the mold of national banks, and oh, by the way, when you put your payroll checks into SVB for us to pay them out, or that might not have happened on Friday. If you are using a product or service that has bills to pay for cloud, and they give that product or service internationally, but they're based in the U.S. and funded through SVB.
Yeah,
something you do could be impacted. It is a contagion that reaches globally when you talk about tech. So don't always count on geographic locations.
Yes, to me, this keeps like relating to like a single point of failure, right? In the like in my tech head, that's what I have like locked onto. Why was Silicon Valley Bank such a single point of failure? Why didn't other VCs diversify, like Ian said? And is that just because of their reputation, pretty much, and that's it?
So from what I've heard, and I'd have to look this up to confirm it. If somebody wants to confirm it, please do. If you're looking at SVB, the CEO, I believe he's the CEO. There's been a lot of like really crappy information flying around. The CEO of Silicon Valley Bank was the CFO of Lehman Brothers in 2008 when it collapsed. If somebody can confirm that.
I saw the screenshot of the page. Yeah.
So,
about us.
So whenever you're saying, Wade, there's a single point of failure and they did this with mortgage-backed securities, like why the hell would they do that? They say history doesn't repeat, but damn, it rhymes. So you're literally looking at a dude who was there in 2008, may not be completely responsible for the collapse, but he's pretty high on that list of Lehman Brothers. He failed as a CFO of Lehman Brothers. And then he became the CEO of Silicon Valley Bank, and they were right back in mortgage-backed securities. So this is, there's so many things that are not really computer security related, but holy crap. We can talk about deregulation and all of that stuff, which I know some people are like, blame Trump, blame these people. Both parties voted to deregulate.
Yeah. This reminds me of the guy who survived like one atomic blast to go to like the other one.
Can we get his whole background? Because Ben just said before, did he intern at Enron with Arthur Anderson Consulting? That would be absolutely hilarious.
Oh my goodness.
Reuters actually has a whole background on the guy, and I'm looking at it right now, and I don't see Lehman Brothers listed in there. He's been with the CEO has been with. He joined Silicon Valley Bank 3 decades ago as a loan officer and worked his way on up. So the whole Lehman thing looks to be a bunch of bunk.
Really? Well, no, hold on.
What was the article you just read?
Or he worked at Lehman Brothers 30 years ago before he went to, because that's the point.
Oh dear God, that would be 20 years ago though.
Well, how?
My
No. If he was at Lehman Brothers and then went to Silicon Valley Bank, and then 10 years later Lehman Brothers fails, like I said, I'm just trying to be a little bit kind.
He started with SVB during the .com boom, is what it was saying.
Oh, it looks like he was at Lehman Brothers prior to the collapse.
Yeah, way prior. That's what I was making.
Yeah. Okay. But okay. So hopefully he doesn't. I wouldn't hire him.
No. What we know now. Sure.
I'm sure he got a golden parachute.
But a hire
I'm sure too
from somebody at Lehman Brothers at the time was probably a coup. It was like, we got somebody from Lehman.
They did pay out all their bonuses before they shut down. So
like an hour before.
Well, that's good.
They got a call that said, "We're shutting you down. You guys have an hour." They're like, "All right, got it. Check."
Well,
Roger.
But let's tie this back to security. I do think that there's going to be an impact to the InfoSec ecosystem. I know that there's a bunch of people that are running around saying it's the end of innovation in information security. And what a lot of people don't understand is most of the stuff that was coming out of the VC space was total complete garbage and snake oil anyway. So we're not missing a whole hell of a lot.
John,
but
Juicero was a revolution in home
The
juicing.
Juicero.
It
It squeezed those bags so good, you know.
Yeah.
so, all right, we've got to move on. So, as
Yeah.
I said, this episode is all about it's not a problem until it's my problem. Do we want to talk about just maybe how the FBI is currently investigating a data breach that impacts hundreds of U.S. House members and staff? So it looks like it's for sale, and it looks like they have like their social security name, first name, last name, gender, relationship, the benefit, the policy. They have their I think they have their spouses, their children, their EIN number for their employer, their personal email address. I mean, oh my God, this is a pretty good little data breach right here.
I'm sorry, I'm confused. Is this the OPM breach over again?
Yeah, no, it's the DC Health Link, which is the Affordable Care Act online marketplace that administrators for healthcare plans for members of Congress and certain Capitol Hill staff.
Yes, it's DC Health Link. It's you know that medical coverage that whenever we have a debate about universal health care, we go, well, why can't we just have what the Congress people have?
This is their health care. This is their separate. Yes.
Yeah.
This is the thing that is breached.
Yeah.
I somebody was making a joke. Well, now are we going to start getting some good cyber laws? I don't know. Ben Chicken. This is, I don't know. It is amazing to me. Like, I mean, they had the John Oliver story where they were talking about data brokers and ad IDs. And then this is a hit. So let's say all of you had a magic wand and Congress would decide to take on the cybersecurity problem. Mm-hmm. What the hell would we have them do? Honestly, let's assume
retire.
Let's not get into whether or not they can do it correctly. Okay. Let's not get into whether or not they can do it competently. But if Congress set out to do something and they could wave a magic wand, their Congress wand, and it was good law, what would you want Congress or any nation state to do from a cyber law perspective that would fix the problem?
Great American Firewall.
Yeah, the Great American.
I have
Why does this firewall look like a giant Linksys router?
We're gonna go out west.
Wireless G.
I mean, I have an unpopular opinion. I read through the Biden administration's, and this isn't a proclamation of
this
anyone.
This is not an endorsement of any political.
Not an endorsement,
but I read through their cyber strategy, right? And two things that they called out, which I think would solve the problem pretty well. It's one thing that would solve the problem pretty much immediately and will never ever happen. And it was putting liabilities on software manufacturers. Never happen. Never in a million years, because no lobbyists, though they will dump an unholy amount of money into saying, no, if we've got bugs in something or some security control isn't you can't come sue us. No, this stuff's hard.
Did you read the EULA, Ian?
Did you read it?
What about like a GDPR?
You do that one piece, and that would change things.
But we could do the same thing. I just heard Wade say, what about GDPR? What do you mean, Wade?
What if we started taking like the European route? So GDPR, I know, follows at least like California. I'm in California. California has some pretty strict data laws and all that stuff. I know GDPR like will smack people for a percentage of their profits. I think it is, or is it gross revenue? Is it gross? Okay.
Yeah,
so what if we skewed more towards that, where we had one giant really good data law instead of like
you're basically saying an accountability framework rather than saying this is security. It's basically like you do what you do, you Pikachu, but should you get back, this is how much you're gonna pay.
Yeah. But at the same point, we saw things like Alphabet. I mean, we've talked on this webcast about companies like Alphabet and Facebook. They get hit with GDPR fines and shrug them off because they're like, oh, you want to take...
Yeah, but if you're looking at... But no, if you're looking... A lot of those have been individual fines, but if you're looking like a GDPR 4% gross, that hurts.
Oh,
like,
sure.
Even if you Google, that's a big paycheck there.
But in this particular case, though, this was the federal government's own healthcare service portal. Yeah. So, like, what? Like, in that case, how would, how would we...
and I'm not necessarily talking about solving this problem so much, Ralph, is let's say that they woke up and they're like, I got hacked. So now we've got to do something about this. Like, what the hell would we want them to do? Like, I don't know.
What were we talking about last week? Subsidized security?
Noah's answer previously that slayed me was retire. Just retire.
Just retire.
Pretty much.
Well, and I've heard rumors that CISA is actually doing security assessments and pen tests now.
Yes. The report was fairly good.
Now, are they charging for that, or do they do that for free?
I could not find that anywhere.
I'm going to be honest.
So subsidized red teams.
That bothers me. I wonder why it bothers me. Probably because it's my problem now, right? So
my other thing with this particular attack is that it was just for pretty much like Congress members and a select few. Why didn't they just like make it where you had to do it on your work computer or something, right? As opposed to just available to the internet? I don't know. Just a thought.
Because as soon as you make things difficult for people, they freak out. They're like, I actually want this on my phone.
I need to change my healthcare every 30 days on my phone. I don't know. Like what?
I have so I've dealt with those kind of questions for a large national company that would have 150,000 employees, right? And I cannot imagine the challenges that you have trying to say, well, a bunch of these legislators and Congress critters are from California, which means we have to do this, and this to make sure that all this is complied with. And then these folks are from Wyoming, and we need to do this, and this. They're never going to be able to go through and get something to the point where they can say, oh, you're just going to do it on work time, because in California, then you have to pay them for it, and you have to provide all this different stuff. And it gets really insanely challenging to say, just do this on your work computer, especially, and I'll use a personal example. I've got 4 kids and I changed jobs and I have to talk to my wife to say, hey, let's look at these plans. And the only place I can do it and sign up is at work. And now I got to bring her to see it. It gets really
a lot.
Ian, even whenever you joined BHIS, we sent you to a portal before you had a BHIS account. To get you set up. Like, I don't know. It's very complicated. But still coming back to, I just don't know, and I've had people ask me this. It's like, so if you could talk to a congressman or woman, like, and tell them what you want done in computer security, what would that be? And I'm like, I have no idea. Like, I have nothing short of something like Wade said, GDPR accountability framework, which would be cool. I don't know what I would have them do.
I don't even think I would
even if you had something like GDPR and stuff like that, that's enforced by all of the European Union, right? As best I understand it, each government in that group helps enforce that. So if you had Congress wave their magic wand and make all these new laws, who would be the enforcing body of it?
We make a cybersecurity arm of the government.
A whole new division of the government to try to police
the cybersecurity division. We like
cyber division.
Oh my goodness!
Cyber division that holds like. They have like a council of like the top cyber people. John will be there, right? All the great minds. They come together like the Avengers and come up with these plans.
I won't be there. I don't want to be on that.
That for that very reason, you have to be there, John. Those who don't want.
That's what makes it
Get those phone calls. Can we get you to come out to DC to talk to some people?
John,
no.
Figure that out. But
they tell you.
They never listen to me.
They lie to you. They tell you it's a B-side.
It's like that group down in Florida. We're trying to create a new compliance framework for all of our critical controls in Florida. What should we do? Like, don't. There's already frameworks out there. Don't write your own. Just use one of theirs. Never invited back again. So
John, we can have Dark Strand do all that stuff.
You could have Dark Strand go to these meetings for me. It's like, we need more threat intel and cyber kill chain.
John's asking
a question. Go ahead.
I was going to say, John's asking what we should do. And you know what? The best they can do is credit monitoring. So that's what we got.
There we go. That's it. That's our solution to this problem.
It's tied to that. I was going to say, in seriousness, this would have been a very good place for the Consumer Protection Agency to say, okay, you're a company. Most of these companies are essentially data brokers. You are the product, whether you're getting some sort of service out of it. Having those types of cyber laws regulated by the Consumer Protection Agency, I think, would be a good fit. But you got to come up with the laws and the fines and the whatnot for them to regulate them first. But I think that would be a good location for it.
Yeah.
So speaking of data breaches, did you guys see the Acronis one?
No.
Yes.
So hold on. So this one got me peaked because I've seen these stories recently, and I've seen this like notion about something that happens. Okay, so some data gets on a form, and the immediate first thing is, no, it's not a big deal. This is not bad. Hold on, and then this is my guess, it's going to get worse. All right. So Acronis is downplaying an intrusion of about 12 gigabytes of data that got stolen. They immediately are like, oh no, it was just one business thing. It really is not that important. Acronis, if you don't know, they make backup software, and obviously to market to security as well, they make immutable backups. So if you get ransomware, right? But it looks like they may have some security issues on their hand. So, and I guarantee you.
What do they have? They have leaked the certificate files, command logs, system configuration, system logs, Python scripts for a database backup configuration. I don't know.
Those Python scripts absolutely don't have secrets in them.
Totally not. Even though Kernelware said the $120 million company is in the data protection and Infosec business, it had quote unquote dog shit security.
That's what they said.
And the hacker was bored, so they decided to humiliate them. Wow.
It sounds like a hacking story.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It just
it's
seems
not
like
that bad is exactly what we were saying about LastPass a few months ago.
Yep.
Right?
Every time I feel like we get snaked on it, it's like, no, it's not that bad this time. And then like it simmers a little bit longer, 6 months. Okay, all right, we have to tell you guys something, all right?
We found these logs.
I look at it like this: like if you have kernelware, right, and he hacks or they hack it, and he's like, yeah, their security's dog shit. I got bored, I left. You know that the Chinese and everybody else are like, what? Like it's so weird. You mentioned LastPass. I think Cameron mentioned LastPass just now. It's the same thing. It's like once you start seeing these companies start getting breached, it's almost like a dinner bell is going, and it's like, come on over here, hackers. So
they call them out.
Well, you think that's the reason why those responses go out, right? Is when you're engaging with law enforcement and things like that. If you're an organization that is breached, it's almost like you need to not say it's horrible so that you're not immediately the target of every terrible attacker, and you're letting an investigation continue during that time. So instead of saying, oh God, yeah, you know what, guys, 2 days in, it's terrible. Everything is on fire. We're burning to the ground over here. And you immediately track all this attention of everybody. Yeah. Instead, you say, let's just wait. It's not that bad. Please don't come over here and cut our heads off or anything. And you let the investigation continue until you can say, all right, it is that bad. Investigation's concluded, but everything is patched up to the best of our knowledge.
So one of the things about their response to kind of tie that in, Kevin Reed, he said, basically news appeared that an alleged Acronis breach. Some of my peers reached out to me with information offering to help. Thankful for that. Here's what we can share. Based on our investigation so far, the credentials used by a single specific customer to upload diagnostic data to Acronis support have been compromised. We are working with that customer who suspended their account. They're working with law enforcement. Then they say at the bottom, no other systems or credential has been affected. There's no evidence of other successful attack, nor is there any data in the leak that is not in the folder of that one customer. So I don't know. They might be right on this, that it was one customer, but still, this kind of goes like, why wouldn't you enforce two-factor authentication on your customer? There's something else here.
They didn't want to deal with it. They just wanted to log in, just like those congressmen and
senators.
The customer had to be able to upload the diagnostic data from their phone.
So we have another article too, and we can just touch on this because it's very much related. But Acer had a data breach as well. Now, the reason I want to kind of like harp on this as it relates to Acronis is that Acronis hasn't been in the news recently of any data breaches, but Acer, this is like the 4th time. Okay, so this is like the 4th data breach that they've had, and this time is 160 gigs. The last time it was a ransomware for $50 million. 7 months later, they had another after-use system in India. So like, it's like a systemic thing, right? Like, and like you said, it's a dinner bell. Okay, like everyone's gonna be like, hey, what? This wasn't that hard. All right, let's check it out.
I thought you were going to tie that back because in the other article, it says a Thursday thread PDF on the notorious breach.
Kernelware,
yeah, Kernelware, who also cracked Acer.
Yep,
this is the same person or people. That's wild.
Yeah, I really hope Acronis. I hope what their CISO said was true, and I hope that they're ready because
that's what I hoped about last pass.
And here we are. Here I am. Like, where are we going? I don't know, but we just really can't stay here anymore.
We gotta go. We don't know where we're going. We're just not staying here.
It's like, is it better? I don't know. Get on the damn bus right now. We're moving.
It brings up kind of like a good idea that I never really thought about in an incident response plan. Once you hit breach and then you go through all the steps, right? Then you're about to announce it and you go, okay, we need to step up security to 11 now really quick while everything comes in because we're going to announce this. I know you usually see, right, LinkedIn start blowing up with hires and stuff like that. But I wonder, it's a cool idea, just like, all right, we're going to just tweak everything up. Everyone's going to be uncomfortable for a little bit.
So we get a number of assessments that come in from companies that are in the middle of an IR. And they're like, we want you to pen test us because we don't know how they got in. And usually in environments like that, when we start testing them, we give them like 7 or 8 different things. It's like, well, you guys don't require 2-factor authentication. All of your users click on every single link. Your website is completely riddled with security vulnerabilities. And they're like, yeah. But which one did the hacker use to get in? And we're like, I don't know.
Not exactly what we were doing there.
Bad. And then some of the incidents that I've worked with where we haven't done the pen test, but I've been like not an incident coach, but an incident advisor or whatever. The thing that really bothers me is I get CISOs all the time that are like, yeah, we know about these other security vulnerabilities, but we want to know how they got in to just fix that one. Because they think that that's the only door. And if they could just fix that, everything's going to be fine. It's so weird. Once you get into an incident, how people look at stuff is absolutely twisted and bizarre all the time.
Do you think that says something for the people in charge?
People might get in instead. We might not be in business as long.
Sure.
And that's another good point, but it's so weird they don't think of it that way, right? They're not like, well, this is clearly how they broke in, and this is all we need to do. It's kind of like Bloodhound data. Like we have companies where we run Bloodhound and there's thousands of potential vulnerabilities, but only a chain of 5 get you DA. And they're like, we'll just fix those. And it's ignore absolutely everything else.
I want to go back to something Chris said, because maybe it's the painkillers because of my tooth today, which is why I have a face full of pain down here, that I'm feeling a little kinder than usual. But you brought up like, hey, it feels like they're rushing to announce these things, or they've got to go through and say something. And the truth is, you couldn't be more right. If you're working at a big company like that, they are often on the clock either contractually to let their partners know that they've had a breach, or from a regulatory perspective from the state's attorney general. And as soon as they know that they've been breached, they're on the clock. They got to go through and in 72 hours say something. And I've had so many conversations with lawyers and folks like that as they're doing that, saying, is this technically accurate? Can we claw this statement back if we need to? Is that the exact number? Because it is going to be entered as evidence. But the problem that raises is that blood in the water, is that other piece, because I've actually advised people to say, you know what? Say it in the starkest terms we can. Do not give hackers the opportunity to be like, oh, it's a sophisticated threat and our security is so great, but don't also downplay it. You have to walk a super fine line to keep the hackers from going, oh, you think you're okay? And I say hackers, you know what I mean? I mean, cyber criminals. But when you keep them from doing that, but also appeasing the regulators. Well, you said this, and this. Which of these is true? It is a really hard line to walk.
And a lot of times, if you deal with regulators or auditors like that, they're not they'll ask one specific question. If you've ever been talking to an auditor, if you've ever been with an organization and you're somebody who an auditor comes to and asks questions, you answer the exact question they asked. You don't give them superfluous information. You don't add more things in, because they'll go down those rabbit holes and they're trying to find out one specific thing. And if it's a regulator or an auditor, they're going to go by their checklist. If you mention more things, they'll ask more things. So a lot of times when you get a breach comes out, you'll probably see these CISOs and other leaders of that organization say very little, because if they say anything else, that, like you said, it will be admitted as evidence in any cases. It's going to be followed down. But really, the way that I think of it with those big companies is they got to let the investigation happen. And if they open their mouth more than what they need to at that moment to meet those contractual obligations or regulatory obligations, then they're putting their organization even more at risk.
And that's why this sounds horrible, but that exact thing that you just pointed out, like if I'm working with attorneys on the other side or audit or like the government on a case, like one of the things I always ask for is I don't want to sit and ask you a game of 20 questions. I'm not interested. I will simply ask, where's your last pen test report? And I would like to have that as part of discovery. And those pen test reports, you can just see like attorneys on the other side when I request that. They're just like, oh God, we're screwed. And it's not always bad, right? Like I'm not doing it to try to screw over somebody, right? But if you look at like the last 4 years of pen test results for firms, you see either one of two things, never in between. The first thing that you see is a company that has had vulnerabilities, but they very quickly remediate those vulnerabilities, and they're doing an outstanding job of computer security, but someone screwed up. Someone clicked a link, they had a server that wasn't protected, they made a simple mistake, and that's what led them to be breached. And that's a horse of a completely different color. What you see more often than not, if you ask for like the last 4 years of pen testing results, then you almost always have, for most companies, either really crappy pen tests. They get the cheapest possible pen test they can. It's like a Nessus scan every year. And even within those really crappy pen tests, you see the same vulnerabilities showing up year after year after year after year, and they're never remediated. I don't see anything in between, right? I either see companies that are doing a relatively good job. They had an oopsie, someone clicked a link. Or I see companies that are doing the absolute most crap minimum of security that they possibly can. The other reason why I asked for the last 4 years is because if the attorneys are smart in those companies, they try to get the pen test results handed over to their attorneys. So it's attorney-client privileged information, and it's very difficult to get it out. And they may have done that for a year or two, but if you can request multiple years of that data and try to get a pen test report that is not protected under attorney-client privilege, and then that gives you all kinds of just amazing information to look at the overall security hygiene of the environment.
So to claw that back a little bit from one of the earlier questions that you asked, John, around what can congressmen or women do about laws, about the other thing. One of the things I always think of when everybody asks, what are congressmen and women going to do to make this better or anything like that? They're not the experts. Nope. And if they try to make laws, even if they try earnestly and with the best of intentions, and they're not playing to special interest groups or anything like that, they're probably still going to get it wrong 40% of the time at least. But you also see that sort of trend with leadership at organizations. You may have a CISO that has no knowledge whatsoever of what actual security is. And I think those are the people that you get to say, hey, we want you to pen test, and I want you to find the one way they got in so that I can say we fix that one thing and not worry about putting a security program in place that actually addresses security as a whole, because they're not seeing it from the same perspective as industry professionals like us on this call and everybody listening. They're seeing it as, I have a responsibility to the organization and I don't want to lose my millions of dollars of bonus or whatever.
Capital, yeah.
Right? I don't want to be the scapegoat. I want to be the person that saved the company by being able to say we fixed that hole, right?
And one of the things I like to point out to people, and I've been doing this for years, is if you're in the security community today and you're working for a crap company and you're working for a crap CISO like that, like we're in a jobs like we need more people, right? We're in a jobs like drought right now. We need more security professionals. We're not in a jobs drought. We're in a talent drought. So if you're good and you're working for a company and you're busting yourself on rocks for a CISO or an organization that doesn't want to do good security practices, it's time to start looking and moving to other companies, because there are a lot of companies out there that want to do the right thing. And we have a number of testers here on this call. And honestly, we see very marked differences in firms. Like some of them are really just incredibly tough nuts to crack, and others are just like absolutely horrible. Go find the good companies and work with them.
Yeah,
that would be some good questions. What are questions to ask in an interview to try to see how good they are at security?
Oh my God.
Are you invested with SVB?
Question up on the screen because I think this is a fascinating one. I'm fairly familiar with it, but I think it's worth mentioning for the viewer. So Proxmox put in here, is the threat of an FTC consent decree a motivating factor? So for those that don't know, before we go into this and people have a chance to do this, the FTC, the Federal Trade Commission, regulates business transactions across state lines. That's where the federal government gets involved. So a lot of breaches for national organizations that have data from California and Illinois or whatnot, that's where the FTC steps in and says, ooh, you messed up, and now we're going to audit you every year for the next 15 years, and you're going to give us consent to do that, and then this all goes away. If you don't, then you get fined whatever the number is we come up with. So what does everyone here think? Would an FTC consent decree fix this? Because I have opinions, but what's everybody else's?
Probably not.
I think 50% of this. I think 50% of the show is my opinions. It's for someone else. Cameron, go ahead.
I think it would probably make it better, maybe a little bit, but for any kind of issue, like it's just not going to be one solution that just is a magic button that works.
Yeah.
Anybody else?
So I've been outspoken on my opinions of how finance and IT security kind of work together. Usually not in the most positive light, but I would feel like if you did have the FTC require something like that, you'd probably see some like better funding in certain companies, and then in other companies it would be just the same. But in certain companies, you might get some better funding, some better talent as a result.
See, now that's interesting because BHIS, we're trying to tie it back to the Silicon Valley Bank thing at the beginning. We do very little work in Silicon Valley for pen testing. Like whenever everything started going to hell, we quickly went through our customer portfolio. We're like, well, do we have anybody in there? No, we came out like, I think, completely clean. And the reason why is a lot of the startup companies, they really aren't interested in doing a good pen test. They want to do the cheapest thing that they can to basically get a checkbox to show that they do some type of due diligence and move on as quickly as possible. So going back to like the FTC thing, and Ian, I want to get your opinion on this because I want to know. I really want to know. But my thought is it's going to be inconsistently applied. And you're going to have the good old boy network, and that's what you're going to run into with that. So what are your thoughts on it?
Very close to the same thing. And the answer that I would have given for Proxmox is yes, absolutely. For the businesses that need it the least and need the help the most. And there's a wonderful book that it's a self-published book by the owner of the company, but it's called The Devil Inside the Beltway. And it is their story of an FTC consent decree absolutely destroying their business, which did medical lab testing for prostate cancer. Right. And they were like, we weren't hacked, and they have a really good reason why. And I tend to agree with them to a degree. But fighting the FTC on it was impossible. Whereas companies like Facebook, Google, these big banks that we're talking about, they're going to do the same thing that any business does. They're going to look at it and say, well, what is the cost of us assigning a team of 50 people to deal with the FTC for the next however long versus fixing the problem? And just like the Fight Club analysis of, do we do the recall? They go, oh, okay, well, whatever happens, we're good because we can absorb that. So would it see change? Sure. Would it help? Maybe. Would it help fix the problems that really need to be fixed? Probably not.
See, and I think that gets down to one of the things, kind of coming down to the end of the show, is I think that so many of the problems come from the fact that our views of everything, and I mean in general, are so short term, right? Like if you're looking at quarterly reports, what are your earnings? What is your stock price? Those are the things you're constantly focusing on. And computer security is one of those long-term sustained investments that doesn't fit well into that model of very short quarterly returns, quarterly profits, trying to get bought. You're trying to keep your costs down if you're a startup because you want to look at your cost to the overall income that's coming in to make that look as positive as you can. And I know tons of companies that'll shut down any and all outgoing checks. They literally won't pay money at all for like months to people. So it looks like they just have this crazy balance sheet where they're making crazy amounts of money, but it's only short term. And I think kind of try to wrap this up, and I'd like to get other people's opinions. This entire system, whether we're talking laws, whether we're talking the FTC, whether we're talking about SVB, all of these things tie down to one simple problem, and that is all of this is focused on short-term gains, and that's completely opposed to what computer security actually is as a cost center.
So this reminds me heavily of like international politics and China's strategy right now, where China is definitely in it for the long game right now, and they're doing it very well, and they have been for a while, whereas in the US only looks at the short game, just like you said. And I never thought about cybersecurity as a whole like that. It makes a lot of sense, but
yeah, China thinks of things in 100-year plans. We think of them in quarterly filings.
Yeah, like building that Silk Road they're doing right now, right? And investing into certain technologies. It's interesting from that standpoint.
Why is this show always so depressing? Why, if you're listening to this on a podcast or a YouTube, like why are you here? There's no joy here.
So I have one last
job
upbeat
security. Congratulations, you all have job security.
I have an upbeat story for the end, right?
Go ahead.
So I'm going to bring it home, and we're going to talk about privacy, which is our other big topic, right? So there was an article in Politico about the privacy loophole in doorbells. Okay, so a lot more people have cameras at their home and other things like that, and so there is a very popular doorbell from Ring. It actually got bought up by Amazon. Speaking of VC funding, anywho, the police department was requesting the video from the doorbell, and so they're subpoena that information, right? And because that data is not actually stored at your house or anything like that, they've been able to acquire that video. What do you guys think about this? This really goes into the privacy sector, so a little bit off of the fintech, but we're really bringing it
happy
home.
note. This isn't ending on a happy
note. All right, I made one lie.
Did you watch Old Yeller and laugh at the end? Did you think Titanic was an uplifting, happy movie at the end that involves?
I have an argument with my wife about that. Titanic was
God.
But that's not for this episode.
But there's been, Ralph, have you noticed that there's a ton of stories around this where people are talking about surveillance in the United States government, and they're realizing the United States government can get amazing surveillance data by just buying it. Yep. And what are the legalities of that surveillance data whenever they're buying it through legal means? I'm sorry I'm laughing, but it's so funny because when I was in the intelligence community, there was all this hand wringing. It's like, well, if we have satellites going over the United States, do we shut them off? Do we send all of the traffic that's being received to Dev Knoll? And how do we do this? How far off the edge of the United States do we have to all of this? What are geofencing? What is Blue Force data and all this stuff? And completely freaking out about it. And now they're literally just like going to some data broker online and they're like, here's $1 billion. And they're like, here's everything you ever dreamed of. And the government's like, it's like, so you're just going to give this to me? Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, you got money. Here's everything. Just here you go. Just take it. So you just get all of this data. There's no. People signed off. They don't read.
No, they gave it to us. They love it.
They gave it to us. And the government's like, they just gave it to you? Yeah. Okay, then I'll take some of this and some of this. Do you mind if I take these over here? As long as you're paying, take it. And what do we expect? Like, are we going to be shocked that the government has the data that they can buy? Ugh.
So we're crowdsourcing our own security, right?
Oh my God! I realized something. We completely missed an opportunity like years ago right? Everyone's willing to give away their Facebook to have social media and whatnot. I am willing to let you see pictures of every meal I eat out and complaining about my cats and whatnot. And I want that to all be invested in a company called Universal Healthcare. That would horror.
So Ralph, there was an article, and I just tried to dig it up from about 4 years ago from around where I live in Charleston, and it was the Charleston and North Charleston Police Department tried to petition local people, not really petition, but put it out there for them to voluntarily register their home surveillance cameras with a program, and they partnered with Ring. This was 4 years ago, and they said if you sign up for this, if there's a crime committed in your area, then the police have access to your camera. You've given consent for them to access it so that they can place a suspect at the scene of the crime and use it as evidence. And it's kind of like it was kind of acted as a pre-sign-off, so they don't have to go through the whole subpoena process to move things along quicker. And it's funny you mentioned this because I just saw, maybe while I was having lunch today, a video of a woman. I don't know if it was real. It was a cop on a Ring doorbell, and they came up to the Ring and they were communicating through it with the owner who wasn't there. They're saying, we have suspect we were chasing. We don't know where they went. Do you have any other cameras and tell us which way they headed? And the lady checked the cameras and said, he's in my trash can around the back. And so the cops ran around the back and surrounded the trash can, made the guy come out because he just ran around the house and hopped in.
So I think the big thing in this article was about the fact that they could go around that asking you, right? They don't even have to go to you directly. They could just go around it, right? And just how we, all the IoT stuff that we deploy and the privacy that does not come with it in some cases, right?
If I give them access to my cameras, do I get quicker response times?
No, there's other cheat codes for that, though.
So I'm still, Ralph, why was this good news? Like, I'm dying.
No, I never said it was good news. I just said it wasn't as bad.
Did you?
I just thought it was funny.
That Ring is making a helicopter.
Is still coming.
What's up?
Which one's still coming?
What was that,
Cameron?
Oh, the happy note that we're going to end on is still coming, right?
Oh,
I'll tell you what. We're at the end. I want to leave it on a happy note.
He's going to bring it. Make me happy.
I'm going to try to make it happy. Number one, y'all that are listening to this, we have job security, and that's pretty cool, right? We talk about the layoffs. We talk about all these things. There's been articles that say that the computer security industry has been pretty much immune to those job layoffs. So have hope. But I'm also going to say that comes with a responsibility that we have to continue to try to fight to make things better. Somehow the entire internet and the entire planet hasn't completely unraveled yet. So keep trying, and more importantly, there's a lot of people here that are trying to help you out. There's a lot of, free education, pay what you can training from people like us and other people online. Just get out there and help each other and try to have a good time. So there we go. There's my positive message. Job security.
Ryan had a good happy note to end on as well. If he wants to throw it up on the screen.
Yeah, we got new fancy stuff.
Yeah, the hacker. By the way, the hacker hoodie is going away.
It's retiring.
I need to buy.
So you want to get that Rekha hacker hoodie? It's time to get it. See, and that's a good thing. That's my favorite one is the flex capacity.
Really nice one,
That's a really cool one. Yes. So there you go. There's some good news as well.
There you go. Yeah, you get a whole new wardrobe.
Hold on, I designed that shirt and I haven't been sent one yet.
Did you?
Shoot me an email. We'll fix that. We'll fix that for sure.
Well, if nothing else, I've realized that Black Hills sucking at capitalism isn't because of a lack of John's knowledge of capitalism. Knows the system very, very well. He chooses to suck at capitalism.
So, all right, we'll go over a little bit. I've got to talk about this just a hair. So I'm a little nutty, right? I get uncomfortable, whatever. I feel more comfortable in a room of 100 people or 1,000 people than I do like in one-on-one conversations. It's just kind of the way I'm wired. And when I was coming up years ago and starting Black Hills Information Security, there was a bunch of firms that would court me and other instructors at the SANS Institute with their products. And they would take us out to steak dinners. They would take us out to all kinds of cool things. And I just want to be honest, they were creepy as shit. Like, they were very weird people. And I kind of, started BHIS and doing what we do specifically because I didn't want to party with those people anymore. They were very, very awkward, weird people. And, they just seemed like sharks, literally, because they were. So a lot of this sucking at capitalism, I guess we're going to say that we suck at their game of capitalism. But you know what? I feel pretty goddamn good about how we do capitalism at BHIS right now, because maybe, just maybe, they might suck at capitalism, maybe even more than me. So with that,
we're in it for the long game. Long game.
John, I just wanted to party with you, and you're just gonna throw me under the bus like that.
That's it. We're gonna take you out of the ocean, drag your ass on the sand, and carve you up into steaks. So
land shark.
Land shark. All right, Ryan, take us out.